Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Back to the TARDIS, the retrospective podcast where we discuss every episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And I am Laika.
And this week we are discussing Series 6, Episode 8, Let's Kill Hitler by who else? Stephen Moffat. This episode has an infamous reputation. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to fucking rag on it, and it was painful to watch. But in the interest of fairness, I will say that Stephen Moffat has said that he was incredibly busy when that episode aired. And he basically, he had his hands full with Doctor Who and Sherlock and Adventures, the Tintin movie. And when they got to filming, Moffat basically had to hand the actors his first draft and hope for the best. So, I can clearly see that a lot of my problems with this episode have to deal with the fact that it very clearly was not finished and needed significantly more time in the oven. However, that being said, he's a dumbass for taking on that many projects, and this episode sucks fucking cock.
Maybe it's due to the fact that I binged the entire first season of High School Musical, the series last night. Maybe that killed my expectations for quality for the next week or so. But I didn't despise this one as much as I thought I would. I figured I'd get a similar reaction to how I was feeling during Demons Run, not A Good Man Goes to War, whatever the fuck that episode is called. But it just came off to me as an admirable but jumbled mess. And we'll get into it. There's several parts of this episode that make no fucking sense. And again, it's an episode that's basically a follow-up to another episode that would work maybe if it was in a different series. But unlike the previous episode, there were moments where I was actually enjoying myself and wasn't just thinking oh, this could be better if they tried harder. I mean, that's obviously still true here, but I don't know. What I'm trying to say is I'm tired, and I thought this episode wasn't good, but in contrast to Chibnall Who, I could see an admirable effort.
Yes, we had a similar experience. We also went into it expecting a very bad episode. And there were various aspects which were quite awful. Genuinely awful. Nonetheless, I don't think the story itself is particularly horrible. And there were definitely beats of it, as well as character moments, which I think have some redeeming qualities to it. I don't think it's the worst episode we've seen so far. It's not an amazing episode, but it's not downright awful. I'll give it that.
So, here's my stance. As I said, there's a couple, as I mentioned in the Discord call earlier, I did like the scene where Amy thought Rory was gay. That was pretty good.
It felt very early 2010s, but
yeah.
Not in the worst way possible. But yeah, that was charming. I guess I'll.
And then other than that, I had to pause every 5 minutes because literally at least one thing would happen every 5 minutes that would make me feel pain.
Can I guess I'll start with this. I think the failing premise of this episode through which everything crumbled, that's a lie. There's 5 things, but at the bare minimum, this feels like an adventure of the week tied with, like, a story arc that they just tried to, like, mash together, and I don't get why you would do that. Like, asking myself, it's just like, but why are you in, like, Hitler's Germany?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
but,
this
like,
is our
actually
main,
why?
that was our main contention as well, because I believe there are definite moments regarding the larger arc which are compelling. We commented that in the chat that we do enjoy some of, like, the some of the Moffatisms within this episode. I believe the overall story he is attempting to tell does hold some interest, and I believe there are good parts to it. However, the episode suffers greatly, largely because it also tries to be an episodic episode, and especially the setting is just, it feels as if it's there simply to cause some concern or controversy.
Yeah, and as
very...
I mentioned, as I've been mentioning this entire season, one of the biggest failings with this arc is that it tried to do this big grand arc while also still trying to have a normal season of Doctor Who, which is a problem because I constantly feel like it's not spending enough time on the arc and is spending too much time fucking about with filler episodes.
Yeah, and I felt like the events of this episode regarding Melody / River specifically, you could have at least, like, stretched, like, 3 parts of this over the rest of the half season. Probably should have stretched it to the whole season if we're being truly honest with ourselves, but at least, like, the second half. Because I'm thinking, like, I guess we'll get into this, but, like, we're introduced to Mel's, and then we get, like, a flashback, which is kind of just, like, retroactively saying, like, oh yeah, she was their best friend, who they've never brought up.
Yeah, no, it is
episode.
also, like, a case of, like, again, like, dude, come on, didn't set it up at all. And it's never like they talk about her again after this, and as mentioned, there's going to be the problem where starting next week, they're just gonna seemingly not be bothered about the fact that they can't find their fucking child.
Yeah, so it's like, there's that, but even ignoring that, it's just like, I could maybe like this episode if, like, let's say they fuck around in Germany. We'll keep the setting. Sure, why not? But at the very end, like, Mel's dies, and she regenerates, and it's River, and they have that whole reveal, and then, like, the rest is like, okay, now we have to try and find this version of her, and she's trying to kill me now. And it's just like, it goes from, like, oh, here's this new character, to, oh, it's this character we know before, but not quite her, to explaining what the Silents have done to her, but not really, because she seems to be able to shake off years of brainwashing and probably torture and other shit, like, in the span of 45-ish minutes. Yeah. And now she's, like, basically the River we know, except, like, not as knowledgeable or refined. And it's just like, okay, that's a good outline. That's a good first draft. So, you know, I believe you when he said I had to give them the first draft. But, like, don't leave them the first draft, you know? It's like, I can see what you're going with. It's like, it's almost like eerily similar to the Star Wars prequels to me, where it's just like, okay, this is a good idea and it's a good outline, but you needed, like, a fuck ton more time spent on it to actually pull it off.
And
yes,
can I talk about Mel's for a second? Because both times I've watched this, Mel's as a character has made me supremely uncomfortable because of the fact that this, like, wild child, more dangerous version of River, who is the version most associated with actively trying to kill the Doctor, is played by a POC actress, and it's like, oh, she's, like, been stealing shit, has been spending all her time in prison. It's like,
I thought I saw her pull out a gun, and I was just like, where'd you get that in this place? It's like, oi, you got a permit for that firearm. Like,
Yeah, it's just like, I don't, like, although I will say, apparently I read somewhere that Jenna Coleman was initially thought of as someone who could play Mel's, and that would have been weird. I mean, I guess it wouldn't have been weird because in that timeline she wouldn't have been the next companion.
Yeah.
But it's like, huh. And yeah, it's just like, up until I rewatched it recently, I fucking forgot that this is like an origin story for how River Song became River Song. Because it feels so nothing.
It's also like...
It feels so nothing that it's just like, right. And like, I completely forgot that that was this episode, which is a problem. It really continues to speak for the fact that River Song, aside from, I'd say, her first appearance, and then when she showed up in the Angels two-parter, aside from that, River Song has been criminally, or not, I'm not going to say underutilized because she's shown up, but everything that they've done with her hasn't at all been on the same caliber as her first two appearances. And it won't be until she gets Peter Capaldi in to act against.
Yeah,
Going back to what you said earlier about how Mel's feels forced, I believe a far better way to handle this would have been if Mel's had been, at the very least, introduced in an earlier episode in the season.
Yeah,
totally.
And then she had been a companion for the second half of the season leading up to that reveal. That would have been far better than attempting to cram what is essentially an entire character arc, or at least a leg of a character arc, into a single episode. It's very stunted, I believe.
It really, like, it feels like my whole problem with this season in particular is it feels like Stephen Moffat trying to do like a modern prestige TV story arc in a show that wasn't built for it without changing up the format enough. Because yes, we keep saying all these things, but the problem is that then that requires all the episodes outside of the big story important episodes to not be filler. And that's the problem. They are, and the arc is much more in depth than like sort of the light keyword story arcs that we had in previous seasons. And it feels like he's basically trying to do a keyword story arc, but all that really adds up to is either the Doctor looking at like the date of his death ominously at the end of every episode, or Amy and Rory having a little bit of like, oh, should we tell the Doctor that he dies? And it's just like, no, you need to do more than that for this to at all work satisfactorily. And I think, honestly, that's something that I've been thinking about. I kind of thought about it in a Chibnall context too, which is like, I would actually really like if you had that sort of thing where you had a Doctor Who season that was a whole story, or like it still had like individual adventures, but the ties between them were much more concrete than just repeated arc thing. Like there's some Big Finish examples that are kind of like that, where it does stuff, even though it's not quite as in-depth as like what Moffat did here. It did kind of do a thing where it was like these related stories. And they also did, like, for example, a story where like each episode is in a different time period as they're trying to track down this immortal person who's supposedly changed the future so he wins. And it's like, just
Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like whenever they try to do something like this, I really appreciate that they do this and that they try it. But the problem is that every time they try it without satisfactorily changing up the formula of the show enough that it can support it, which I think is a huge letdown because this show's format and like style has changed so many times. Like, give us something like Trial of a Time Lord, where it's a whole season that's a bunch of stories that are separate but sort of linked by this one thing, you know, more than just like an arc phrase or a reappearing thing.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, that's really you exposited my main problem with this. Not to date this episode, but yesterday, JXC's 5-hour-long expose.
Oh, I haven't even begun to watch that.
The downfall. It's honestly her magnum opus. It's so good. But one of the things that she brings up is how contrived and how like full of coincidence the Chibnall era is, especially when it comes to like important plot points. And Let's Kill Hitler and the majority of Series 6 isn't like on that level, but that's how I feel about a lot of these instances of just how these storylines progress. And honestly, having things not happen by coincidence is one of the toughest things to do in writing. So yeah. I'm not going to say that like RTD never suffered with this. Obviously, Stephen Moffat does. Every writer does. But just, again, the fact that we're introduced to a key character right here, right now, just for the time of the reveal, it's like...
Yeah.
You can make that work, but they didn't set that up.
And it's also, like, it's so stupidly obvious because it's like, it's this new character, and she's named Mel's.
Yeah, I was just like...
Yeah.
I'm glad I watched this when I was dumb and in middle school, because I got to experience the one time in my life where that twist was actually a surprise to me.
Yeah. No, and
yeah.
And, you know, a side note on contrivance. As someone who enjoys shit like Kingdom Hearts and JRPGs, I don't mind contrivance if the emotional payoff works, or if something about the payoff of that contrivance works. And I don't feel like that's the case here.
Yeah, everything that works in this episode is kind of ancillary to the main plot. Like I'll give... I guess the thing that like mainly works is that Alex Kingston is clearly trying to bridge the gap between like whoever the actress who plays Mel's at first is. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. And like who River eventually is. I know she's trying. It's a shame we didn't get like a full like half a series of her, you know, bridging the gap, but whatever. Like, she's clearly putting in work, and 11, Matt Smith, I think, has quite a few like genuine moments of like good character and like good acting and stuff like that. But it's just like the setting is misused. We haven't even gotten to the Tesselecta and how much that...
Oh, believe me, I have some fucking choice words for the Tesselecta.
Me but fucking too.
First, I guess, so to go through this, Doctor and Rory try to summon 11 using a crop circle, or the crop circle that is spelled with the name Doctor. And then the real fun, you have all that, and then fucking Mel's drives through it in a straight line, which, you know what's funny? That actually kind of looks like the current logo now.
Yeah.
And they totally, like, there would have been no way that they would have known that at the time. And that's actually kind of funny.
I will say that opening bit was quite good. I do enjoy that sort of we can't contact the doctor, so we have to use something rather ridiculous.
Nice callback to the first episode of him trying to get their attention.
Yes. However, the following exchange with Mel's is painful.
Yes.
I think the most egregious line in this episode to me is just the awful delivery of the establishing line where she says, "Let's kill Hitler," in just the most deadpan, emotionless voice possible.
Yeah.
And
What the
it
hell?
just sounds
Let's
so
kill
forced.
Hitler,
Yeah.
mate.
It sounds like she's reading it off of a teleprompter. It's quite a bad delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
that sort of
intro
sets
on
the
the
tone
whole,
for the episode.
the intro on the whole is acceptable to me. First of all, I like Eleven's new change of outfit. Like
yeah,
that
the
actually
jacket,
looks.
the coat's nice at least.
Yeah, the coat's nice. There's at least some indication that Amy and Rory are like still hurting from the ordeal, though not as much as ideally there should be. And I gotta call out the line of like, it's like, I don't remember you at the wedding. It's like, I danced with everyone. The women were great. The men were a bit shy, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just the delivery of that was like pretty perfect.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess like if this series ended better, the line of Mel saying "I don't do weddings" would at least be amusing to me. But knowing how that goes, I was just like, huh.
Yeah. Anyways. No, and it's just like, yeah. And then she just randomly, like, she's just awful, man. She's just fucking awful. Anyways. So, moving on. After our credit sequence, we are introduced to the Tesselecta. And now, here's what I will say. The concept of a time-traveling robot that can shapeshift and is essentially here to take horrible people out of their time stream close to their death and basically punish them or torture them or whatever is an interesting idea. It could raise some interesting points or thoughts about morality and like the ethical, like whether or not that's ethical or whatever. And it's an interesting idea. The problem is it needs its own episode and it never fucking gets it is literally every time it is pulled in for plot contrivance so Moffat can fix the episode. He does it here and he does it in fucking Wedding of River Song. It's so dumb.
Yeah, and I won't even. Okay, first of all, I did think of a funny joke when this came up. There was a tweet a couple days ago that it was just like, "Hey, it's like, how are your parents gonna die in the revolution or something?" And it was just like, will they A, get the wall, B, re-education, C, the gulag? And then in my mind I was just like, D, Tesselecta torture.
Yeah.
But
and you know, like the word, like really the like there's some dumb shit on Doctor Who to justify monsters, but the Tesselecta security thing is so mind-bogglingly stupid. It's just like, why the fuck would you even design, like, there's like, haha, why would Black Mesa doesn't apply to OSHA, like, Black Mesa fails all the OSHA regulations, and why would you make your laboratory like this? No, why would you make it so your security system requires everybody to have a fallible piece of technology on them or they will die?
Or also, like, how... I don't know. Again, this is why this needs its own episode, and I might even accept it here if they introduced it earlier, but they have this time-traveling machine. They're almost ready to, like, either kill or torture Hitler, and right as they're about to do that, they realize it's the wrong year, and it's just like, you didn't check before now? Were you just, like, really eager or something? Like, first day on the job, you're just like, ooh, yeah, first assignment on the big time-traveling shrink ship. I get to kill Hitler. My wife's gonna be so proud of me. Like, what are you thinking up until this moment? It was just, I don't know. If headcanoning for a bit, if it was like, if this was very early time travel technology, if this is what humanity in the future was trying to do before they established the time agency, Because Jack Harkness is a certified himbo, okay? But he is an improvement compared to this piece of crap. So I can understand this being a very early implementation of, like, humanity time traveling and being like, oh yeah, we're gonna be Justice Lords. We're gonna, like, execute people for their crimes, man. People go unpunished. What's rehabilitation? Puh. You know, screw that. But instead, yeah, it's there for the Doctor to use later so he doesn't die.
Yeah, so anyways, there's the haha Hitler comedy Hitler, woo, yay, what a great use of a fascist dictator as a historical figure in an episode. A+ Stephen Moffat, well done. Woo! Yeah, let's go.
I didn't quite mind that as much as I thought I would. I mean, yeah, I'd like for him to come back.
Yeah, but he's literally in here for like 2 minutes, and then the plot just moves on. It's so fucking, like, they're just like, okay, we're just gonna throw him in the cupboard. It's so mind-bogglingly, like, stupid in its callousness.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think his treatment is fine if you call the episode something else, because taking the Taika Waititi approach of, like, I'm just gonna, like, make fun of Hitler and not take him seriously, because fuck him, like, that's a valid approach. I can understand being like, okay, we're gonna save Hitler's life, but then we're gonna have Rory punch him and then just, like, lock him in his own closet. Like, conceptually, I'm like, okay, you can do that, but don't call the episode something that centers the character. You know, maybe don't do that.
It's very much all there for shock value, and I don't think, even if it had played out that way, it would not have been in the same taste as Jojo Rabbit. It's very much just there for shock value.
Also, I just realized the only person he manages to kill is the POC actress. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. And then fucking Melody regenerates into River, and we just, like, okay, we've made jokes on this show in the past about Stephen Moffat's like kinks working its way into the episode a little, but I feel like this episode shows that generally he has enough self-awareness to kind of tone it down a little bit in second drafts or future drafts, whereas here it's just like, like, here's the thing that I will at least put forward. It works on Alex Kingston's end, and she's doing a good job of selling it. The problem is that not only is she paired with the Doctor, she's paired with Matt Smith. And you, like, both sides need to be A+ for this to work, and they're not. Like, this wouldn't, I don't even think this would work if it was Peter Capaldi, because that's not what his Doctor is like, and it's not really what the character is like.
It half works and it half fails, again, because Alex Kingston sells it, and I do like that despite, you know, her doing the, like, hello Benjamin thing and stuff, like, he has the presence of mind, like, he's fought in the Time War. Of course he's gonna know how to disarm a fucking gun. Like, no duh. But then, like, when it comes to, like, her kissing him and that being the thing that does it, it's just like, again, it's a sort of contrivance, and it comes off more as, like, a horny moment rather than, like, if you had built this character up to, like, for the Doctor to, like, trust her or anything, and, like, have that be a betrayal, but instead it's just, like, it just sort of happens, and it's supposed to be, like, another reveal, but it's not. I don't know.
Speaking of the Doctor's involvement in the Time War, was I the only one who believed that when the Tesselecta were referring to the greatest war criminal in the universe, they were referring to the Doctor? That would have made a lot more sense. He quite literally committed
That would have made
genocide.
more sense than the fucking silence make. God damn.
Yeah.
Yes, like, because they said, "Oh yes, we have a hit on the blue box, and we found the greatest war criminal." Our mind immediately went to the fact that the Doctor committed the genocide against an entire species. Um, especially considering the themes.
I guess they decided that it didn't stick because the Daleks still keep showing up.
Well, I wasn't referring to the Daleks. I was referring to the Time Lords.
Fair enough, yeah.
And simply the fact that I have to distinguish between the Doctor's genocides only adds to my point.
I mean, they consider like torturing people at the end of their life to be like a fine thing, so they probably agree with the Doctor's moral calculus. But yeah, it's a weird framing of things, because I did think for half a second, it's just like the way they say that, it's like they're talking about the Doctor, but that's clearly not what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Also, just another like nitpicky thing, like I know we could go all the way back to like hallucinogenic lipstick or whatever the fuck they call it earlier, but like,
yeah,
literally how the fuck do you put poison on your lips? And I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe that's a real way people have poisoned people in history, but I just can't imagine of how you put that on yourself and have it not kill you. That like, yeah. Please explain, episode. Whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, so Doctor gets poisoned. It's like, oh, there's a ticking clock. He'll be dead in about the amount of time that's left in the episode. Okay, I will give this episode credit. The part where, even though the voice interface in itself is stupid and devalues Doctor's wife, the fucking bit where it's like, I need avatars for this, and it flips through like pictures of Rose and Martha and Donna, and he's like, nope, that's too much guilt. Can we find someone in the universe I haven't screwed up yet?
Yes, that was our other favorite moment in the episode. It was very good.
Really good, yeah. It works as a better emotional climax than the actual emotional climax of the episode, which, again, kind of damning with the praise there, but it's a good moment. Yeah, again, the actress for Amelia continues to impress. I hope she's doing good.
Although I will say, I find it funny that he's like, someone that I haven't screwed up yet, and he's fine with that being Amy, when that is categorically not true. He is absolutely screwed Amy Pond up. Just absolutely.
Look, there's only so many hours in an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good moment. This is the first time I caught that, like, the interface tells him that the poison is made from the Judas tree. And it's like, nice one, Moffat.
Yeah.
I've read my Bible.
Haha, very clever.
I've read the Book of Mark. I know the good news, you bastard.
Obscure references.
Fish fingers and custard, take a drink.
Yeah. Anyways,
oh.
Yeah, there's basically this showdown scene with the Tesselecta and River and Amy where he gets the lowdown on his death now. Oh yeah, Amy and Rory just straight up kill at least one person here. Like, that is a thing that happens.
When do they do that?
When they turn everybody's, like, authorization thing off, which summons the antibodies, at least one person fucking dies in that, on screen.
Did that? I thought they, like, did the thing where it's like, I don't know, it just seemed like they were holding the crew instead of killing them instantly, which is another contrivance, but whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, one of them, like, straight up dies.
Okay.
Yeah, no. And we get that fucking shit that annoys me where like River just randomly, like, what even? Yeah, he's just like, River, I know you, and that somehow is enough to make her like turn face again for some reason. Okay, bro. Sure, dude.
It's very... Again, I can see what they're going for. That, like, on paper, the idea that, like, she comes to trust the Doctor and the companions enough that when they actually start to, like, trust her in return, she feels guilty and has, like, a change of heart. Like, they do that for Luke Skywalker's fucking wife in the Expanded Universe novels. Like, it's a trope, but it's good if pulled off well. The problem is, this is one episode, so you're not going to pull that off well. I don't care how good you look in that suit, Doctor. You're not going to pull it off.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like, yeah. So, and she, as sort of a way to hand wave, oh wait, I gave River Song regenerations, but she dies in Silence of the Library. They hand wave that just, oh, that burned up all her regenerations. Haha. Haha. Just awful. Terrible.
I bring up how Timeless Children probably breaks regeneration in this episode too, but the fact that she's a human means that I could probably buy that she had a finite amount anyway. Because River Song makes no fucking sense as an individual.
Children. What do you mean by that? Time. What do you mean? What do you mean, Skylar? It's 2019. Timeless Children never happened.
It'll be okay, Jeff. It's fine. Yeah, I don't get why they leave her. Like, I get, like, the Doctor's sentiment
because she's
of,
not
like,
allowed to become a companion. I don't fucking know, dude.
So
this shit annoys me so much.
On paper, the idea of, like, we know too much about her future, like, she needs to find herself, like, let's just assume she's been cleared of the brainwashing. Somehow. That's
somehow.
Like, so dumb. But let's assume. I get the idea of, like, okay, you know, her entire life has been about me. I don't want to continue to influence her life in, like, an undue way. Except, A, that's noble, but A, you already know she continues to be involved with you. And B, this just seems to be an excuse for why they continue to meet out of order. Like, again, It's just like this episode works as, like, the start to an arc that could end this way, but they just decide to start it and end it in the same episode. So it's just like, okay, I see, like, you wanted to get from A to B to C to D to E and then go all the way to Z at the very end. As a writer, I understand wanting to get to the good bits and outlining them, and making your first draft essentially the stuff that works. Like, I do that. But then I keep working. So it's like, yeah, Moffat, it's a shame you got yourself in this position, but also, you fucking got yourself in this position.
Yeah, you did this to yourself, bitch. It's just, nasty. Anyways. Yeah, so I guess unless anybody has anything else to say, moving on to ratings.
I couldn't decide if the joke about River saying, like, oh, I was at this gay Jewish gypsy bar mitzvah and I thought I'd go kill the Fuhrer. Like, I can't decide if that joke is brilliant or just terribly problematic.
It's a little funny. It's a little funny. Here's the thing with that joke. If it wasn't River in this terrible, terrible episode saying it, it would be a highlight. Context matters, kids.
I also just like the idea of, like, I don't know, saying that to Nazis before you kill them is, like, kind of a great flex. Like, I respect it. But yeah, no, that's all I have left.
All right,
Anyways,
our turn?
yeah, no. So moving on to ratings.
Yes.
Yeah. As I said, this episode's fucking garbage. But that being said, like, I feel bad for it. I think Moffat knows that he really, like, fucked it up with this one, and he just didn't have any choice. And, like, to some extent, I think a lot of that is still his fault by sort of overextending himself way too much and going way too ambitious on this arc. And I think, as Skylar said, there's definitely pieces in here of what a good episode could be, but they're just buried too deep, and I spent too many times having to pause this episode and sort of breathe for a little bit because I just... Gah! So, yeah. Fucking D. It's I don't know if it's the worst thing that we've watched for this, but it's pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, I guess this is very interesting to watch after A Good Man Goes to War, because I think I gave that episode a D, and my main reasoning was that it was acting like the finale or mid-series finale to a show that didn't exist, and was just presuming a lot of stuff and just fumbling all over the place. And while that's technically true of this episode as well, I also kind of have more respect for it, because I could see, like, even with A Good Man Goes to War, I could see, like, Mel's being introduced in this episode or earlier on in the series, and then if they had just stretched out, like, the outline of what this episode is, like, stretched out what River goes through, or Melody, you know, whatever, and, you know, maybe eject Hitler and put the Tesseract in another episode, or just, like, there are genuine elements that you can work with, but they're just all jumbled in here. And though individual elements or moments or lines may work, the fact that they're, like, stitched together in this, like, Frankenstein's series arc just takes all the kick out of it and leaves it really neutered, and it doesn't help that Wedding of River's song ain't exactly good. And the fact that, like, we don't see genuine, like, S-tier River again until Capaldi. Like, I'm glad we get
her
that.
last appearance.
But yeah, it takes a while. So it's just, I don't know. Whereas A Good Man Goes to War just kind of left me, like, really disappointed and, like, pretty, like, pissed off. Not in, like, a gamer bro way, but just in a, like, man, you could have, like, you could have done this so much better. This just kind of, like, makes me sigh and be like, well, that's a shame. I give this episode a C. I don't know.
Yeah, so it was a rather disaster of an episode. I believe there were definitely good moments. The particular highlights were, as you mentioned, the moment where Amy believes that Rory is gay. It's a good comedic beat.
Yeah.
And for a more serious character beat, just the moment of the Doctor in the TARDIS where he's attempting to summon up a voice interface, and it continues to bring up both himself and his past companions, and he is haunted by his own guilt over them. And it somewhat portends to the ending of the season, since Amelia is the last one to appear. Yes, so despite that, those good points, it is just absolutely hamstrung by disastrous setting and attempting to blend, as you said, an episodic plot along with a seasonal arc, and neither really comes out well, and there's just far too much in this episode, and none of it is really justified in its own right. It's a somewhat of a mess. I would similarly say a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. Like, I said kind of last week, A for effort, D for execution. This is really like an A, not even for effort, but for inspiration. Because I think really what it is like, yeah, there was an attempt, you know? You definitely tried, but just man. Anyways, next week we will be discussing Night Terrors by Mark Gatiss. Until then, you can follow us on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star on an episode of your choosing. I'm Jeff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL.
I'm Rory's gay alter ego. You can find me on Twitter at skyhigh9_5.
I am Leica, and you can find me and the rest of the system at nomadiclastic at twitter.com.
And we will see you all next week.